Now, in this chapter you're about to read with me, Mr. Wonka acts perhaps inappropriately to some of the parents, particularly one of the mothers. And he is mean to them, not very friendly. And I'm wondering, though, if you think that he's justified in why he decides to be mean to them. Now, when we read it, you might hear me, you might think it's kind of silly and funny. I actually couldn't help but laugh when I read it. And it is silly, but really, adults are not supposed to talk to each other this way, the way that he talks to one of the parents, especially in front of children. They're not supposed to. But again, I want you to think about it as we're reading. And I'm wondering if you think that he's justified, that he did the right thing by talking back, by being unkind to the parents. Interested to see what you think about that. Chapter 23. Square Sweets That Look Round. Everybody stopped and crowded to the door. The top half of the door was made of glass. Grandpa Joe lifted Charlie up so that he could get a better view. And looking in, Charlie saw a long table. And on the table there were rows and rows of small, white, square-shaped sweets. The sweets looked very much like square sugar lumps, sugar cubes, except that each of them had a funny little pink face painted on one side. At the end of the table, a number of Oompa Loompas were busily painting more faces on more sweets. "There you are," cried Mr. Wonka. "Square sweets that look round." "They don't look round to me," said Mike Teavee. "They look square," said Veruca Salt. "They look completely square." "But they are square," said Mr. Wonka. "I never said they weren't." "You said they were round," said Veruca Salt. "I never said anything of the sort," said Mr. Wonka. "I said they looked round." "But they don't look round," said Veruca Salt. "They look square." "They look round," insisted Mr. Wonka. "They most certainly do not look round," cried Veruca Salt. "Veruca, darling," said Mrs. Salt, "pay no attention to Mr. Wonka. He's lying to you." "My dear old fish," said Mr. Wonka, "go and boil your head." "How dare you speak to me like that?" shouted Mrs. Salt. "Oh, do shut up," said Mr. Wonka. "Now watch this." He took a key from his pocket and unlocked the door and flung it open. And suddenly, at the sound of the door opening, all the rows of little square sweets looked quickly round to see who was coming in. The tiny faces actually turned towards the door and stared at Mr. Wonka. "There you are," he cried triumphantly. "They're looking round. There's no arguing about it. They are square sweets that look round." "By golly, he's right," said Grandpa Joe. "Come on," said Mr. Wonka, starting off down the corridor again. "On we go. We mustn't dawdle." "Butterscotch and butter gin," it said on the next door they passed. "Now that sounds a bit more interesting," said Mr. Salt, Veruca's father. "Glorious stuff," said Mr. Wonka. "The Oompa Loompas all adore it. It makes them tiddly. Listen, you can hear them in there now, whooping it up." Shrieks of laughter and snatches of singing could be heard coming through the closed door. "They're drunk as lords," said Mr. Wonka. "They're drinking butterscotch and soda. They like that best of all. Butter gin and tonic is also very popular. Follow me, please. We really mustn't keep stomping like this." He turned left. He turned right. They came to a long flight of stairs. Mr. Wonka slid down the banisters. The children, all three of them, did the same. Mrs. Salt and Mrs. Teavee, the only women now left in the party, were getting very out of breath. Mrs. Salt was a great fat creature with short legs, and she was blowing like a rhinoceros. "This way!" cried Mr. Wonka, turning left at the bottom of the stairs. "Go slower!" panted Mrs. Salt. "Impossible," said Mr. Wonka. "We should never get there in time if I did." Get where? Asked Veruca Salt. Never you mind, said Mr. Wonka. You just wait and see. So what did you think? Did you think that Mr. Wonka, when he said, my dear old fish, go and boil your head, was he justified by saying that? Now, here's what I need you to do for your writing response today. In this chapter, particularly Veruca Salt was obnoxious, talking back, not nice or kind to Mr. Wonka. Here's some of the things that she said at the beginning. They look square. They look completely square. And then Mr. Wonka said, but they are square. I never said they weren't. Then Veruca again says, you said they were round. But they don't look round. She keeps pressing him. They look square. They look round, insisted Mr. Wonka. They most certainly do not look round, said Veruca. She is pushing him, pressing him. Not friendly, not kind. Why do you think she acts like this? What is it about this girl that has made her so obnoxious? We know this about her character. She is obnoxious. She is spoiled. She doesn't care who she's talking back to, including adults. But why? What about her makes her this way? How did she get this way? I want you to write about that. It's almost like you're writing not really a prediction, because whatever happened to her must have happened in the past. Predictions are always about the future, right? But you still have to decide why she acts this way. How did it occur? What happens to her in her life for her to act so rude and obnoxiously to people? Best of luck. Enjoy that.